So Morg, so Mohg. I should actually think, but is his full name Mohgwyn?
That's a good question. We'll get
Because
into
after the
that.
fight, yeah. Because I just realized like the place he's in multiple times is referred to as Mohgwyn, and then he says, the Mohgwyn dynasty. So
This is a good question we'll get into later. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 6, I think. Yes, we're on episode 6
Yeah,
of
that's
Elden
right.
Ring Lore Explained. We
Woo.
have two of our usual guests here, Playfree and Neve.
Oh, yeah.
hello.
Now, I got a few comments from some people suggesting it was mostly in like the first two episodes when the audio quality was at the worst. It was some people saying like, "Nice video, but you guys should get some mics." Um,
I did.
yeah, Neve did,
I
completely
didn't.
unrelated to the videos. And once again, I have my headphones now, so there's no audio doubling or whatever.
Ain't that fantastic?
It is tremendous. So, today we're going to be talking about omens and some of the more notable omens. These are a variety of creature that you encounter a few times throughout Elden Ring, with two specific specimens being most notable. So, as a bit of an introduction to omens, we should probably talk a little bit about a concept that I think is fairly closely related to them. There is a crafting item you can get from some annals and a few places called a budding horn, which is said to sprout from a beast that bears no horns and is a vestige of the primordial crucible. So we went over the primordial crucible at least once in one of the previous episodes. It's basically the big what's the word I'm looking for here? The big pot in which all life emerged from. You know, the big whatever.
Oh yes, Alexander.
Ah, yes, all life emerged from Alexander. It's a mixing pot. I don't know. Basically, at the beginning of current life, life more closely related to the Erd Tree after the Age of Stone, all creatures emerged from this primordial soup called the Primordial Crucible, and pretty much everything looked the same, and that it all shared various features, wings, tails, horns, the various things that the Crucible Knight's incantations manifest, um, all that stuff. And over time, as life evolved, the features became divided up into different species, and things became more distinct instead of sharing all of the same features. Horns are one such feature, as we find out from the budding horns, and as you can find out from the Crucible Knight's incantations. So, omens seem to be a case of like super recessive genes, and that they are born with birth defects that give them more primordial features. They have horns, they have thicker skin, they have fur like various other animals. Some of them have tails, like Morgott. Um,
So it's like if a human today were being born with a monkey tail, right?
Kind of, yeah. Actually,
That'd be
that is
sick.
a fairly good comparison. My best guess is just the Erd Tree made kind of an oopsie. It made a little bit of a mistake because we know that pretty much souls originate from the Erd Tree and life originates from the Erd Tree. So if something goes wrong with the creature in such an extremely defective manner, it's probably just kind of a little bit of a glitch in the Erd Tree. I don't know. It's like having remainder in a math equation.
Hmm.
Um, these things are kind of similar to the Misbegotten, but they seem to be mostly a separate thing. The Misbegotten apparently they're some kind of curse for looking into the primordial crucible, whatever that's exactly supposed to mean, and as such they are treated like shit because of that. not a whole ton of lore I've found about the Misbegotten as of yet. Um,
Yeah, it's
we know, I'm pretty sure Hugh is one of the Misbegotten, and it seems like Hugh may actually be an Omen as well, because he has the horns and stuff growing out of him. He has sort of the same growths that we see on the Omens. Or I guess Omen. I think Omen is the actual plural form in this context. Um, Now, the big defining feature, or features, about the Omen, besides the primordial features, is that they are born without grace. They are not touched by the light of the aired tree, kind of like the tarnished. But instead of being cursed and being stripped of grace, like we tarnished are, they were just born without it in the first place. And I guess are cursed in another manner in that respect. Um, and as such, being devoid of grace, their souls do not return to the aired tree when they die. So for them, this is just kind of it. I mean, their remembrance can be hewed into the aired tree, but that's not the same thing. That's just kind of the aired tree acknowledging that they existed at one point, but their souls, I don't know, go somewhere else. It's a reminder that the things like the Elden Ring and the Primordial Crucible and the Erd Tree are all very closely linked, but they are not all literally the same thing.
yeah.
The Primordial Crucible was said to be like the most ancient form of the Erd Tree, so it's safe to assume that the Erd Tree emerged from the Crucible as well, in some respect, or may have been what was containing it, stewed up the Primordial Crucible in some manner.
Right.
But
They're separate.
they're separate. And one last thing is that they're apparently haunted by nightmares for some reason.
Ah, how sweet.
Yeah, great. Being an omen
Like
is
me.
Yeah, like you. Being an omen kind of sucks. Now, there is a character who actually has a lot to do with omens, apparently. And this person is the loathsome dung eater.
The guest appearance.
Yeah, a
my
guest
God.
appearance, a surprise appearance for those
Best
who are not in the know.
character?
Yes, the best character. The loathsome dung eater is described as being an omen at heart, which means although he is not physically an omen, he feels like one on the inside, probably because he's tarnished. Probably has something to do with the fact that he is devoid of grace as well. And this really sucks for him that he is an omen on the inside but not on the outside, and he wishes that he were one. And as such, he wears the omen set, which features things that look like omen horns. Now, the seedbed curses that are produced by his killings and that we find around the lands between are called seedbed curses, and they contain omen horns within them. And these curse people in such a way that their souls do not return to the aired tree, which is what happens to the omens. So it almost seems like the seedbed curses that his rituals produce afflict people in a way that being an omen does.
Which is what he wants.
Yeah, exactly.
He wants everyone he hates, which is almost everyone, to suffer the curses that he's had to.
Yeah. So there is a group of enemies that we can encounter in a few different places referred to as the Omen Killers. And as you would imagine, their job is killing omens. They're like witch hunters, but specifically for omens. Or omen. I need to get used to that. I'm used to omen being a singular word.
I think it would still be omens.
I know, but I think actually some of the Omen Killer item descriptions refer to the omen as like a plural.
So why do these omen killers want to kill all the omens?
Because
Seems
they
pretty
do.
badass.
Probably because they're viewed as being cursed. So the Omen Killers were created by a guy called Rollo, who used to be a perfumer, and then drank a physic that erased his emotions so that he could go about with tormenting and butchering the omens without any inhibitions.
Good for him.
Yeah, great. Well, what a
Getting his
tremendous
job
guy.
done effectively.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
and
too will.
it seems like the Omen killers just kind of exist and operate in such a manner to make existing as horrible and unbearable for the Omen as physically possible. Their cleavers have the horns of Omen like forged into them. Their masks are supposed to be reminders of the nightmares that haunt them. They just really hate him. They really want to fuck with them. It is brought up that having these vestigial features at one point was viewed as a good thing, but now is viewed as being cursed. So, presumably the Omen killers hunt Omen for the same reason witch hunters hunted witches, because they
They're
thought they were
different.
evil and cursed. And, well, they're literally named Omen, as in like they're a bad sign. If they show up, it means something bad is going to happen. So they go around killing them.
Ah, yes, you have sent me a letter saying I will be evicted in 14 weeks. I will burn the letter, and thus I will not be evicted.
There you go. If only it were that easy, I'm afraid. So very, very sad.
Well, omen doesn't right. It doesn't always mean good or evil. Well, it doesn't always mean evil. It usually means good or evil, right?
That's true. So you could
So
say in the
they
past
just
they
it
were a
is
good
just
omen, but now
they
they're
are
viewed as a
different.
bad omen.
Yeah, they are different. Let us kill them.
Yeah. Now, most people cut the horns off of omen babies, probably for the purpose of like trying to hide the fact that they're omen. Though it's not really that easy when you consider the other features, such as being big ogre people with fur and a thick gray skin and occasionally tails. Um, we encounter a few of these in various places. There's one hanging out in Stormville Castle. Um, you can identify them based on the feature of these sort of like these big splotches of sort of reddish pink tissue that I assume is scar tissue. And that's presumably where they cut off the horns. And it doesn't really look like they did it in a super sanitary manner. They were not being particularly surgical. They just like hacked them off or something. Um, so that shit did not heal over correctly.
I mean, I doubt there were too many medical practices that were perfected in this time frame.
Probably not, especially
Other
once
than
the
like cure
shattering
wounds.
happens.
Yeah.
But in opposition to the standard practices, the royals of the Golden Lineage did not cut the horns off of their omen babies, which is weird because you would think they would want to get rid of those features. And instead, their alternative manner of doing this was just throwing them underground in the subterranean shunning tunnels and restraining them with shackles and just leaving them there for all of eternity.
Even killed them.
No, they didn't kill them. They just threw them underground. They just threw them in the tunnels underneath Langdell.
That's me.
Yeah, a little. Fuck, I turned down your volume a minute ago because you got really loud at certain points, and now you're too quiet. I gotta turn your volume back up.
It happens.
Now, it goes without saying that this is kind of fucked.
Yeah.
At the very least, like, you could say that with people outside the royals, the removal of the horns may have served a few purposes. It was, so that they wouldn't be easily identified as omen for the omen killers, though I'm sure those guys would still be like, hey, why is this dude like a 10-foot tall hairy ogre person? What's the deal with that? Or it could be sort of like an out of sight, out of mind thing. It's like, well, if we remove the horns, then everything's fine, I guess. Everything's good, everything's chill. But for the royals, they're like, no. Obviously, they're not very frightened of the omen killers. But they still know that they're omen. Even if they remove the horns, they know what they are. So for them, it's a total like out of mind or out of sight, out of mind thing. They don't want anything to do with them. They don't want people knowing about them, which is presumably the biggest factor. Is you can't have people knowing that there were Omen babies born into the royal family. So we just take them. We're not gonna murder them or anything, and we're just gonna
'Cause,
put them somewhere else.
Well, my guess is if they just kill. Oh, there's probably a few things that could be guessed about that. Like killing them, that's probably something that honestly might be a bit more difficult to hide because they would need to get people to, hide the bodies. Which I guess they could have just chucked in the sewers, but then eventually,
I think
Well,
it
they
was
just put-
more of like a taboo thing. That's just like even if they're omens, you shouldn't murder your babies.
maybe.
Yeah, of course you have
But that's
standards.
giving them a soul, that's giving these people
That's true.
a
Well,
bit
not all
more
of them were
hope.
terrible. It seemed like Godwin was a cool guy. He befriended a dragon. That's got to be something.
Yeah, something to some extent.
Miquella was a cool guy, as far as we can tell. So was Radon. Various cool
Well,
dudes in the royal family.
Well, Radon was a cool dude, I guess, but more of like a great general.
That's true. Um, though the thing is, and this is the one weird thing about like shunning them underground, is that they're not entirely forgotten. I think, because there's an item we can get from Morgott's Remembrance called the Regal Omen Bairn, which is basically a little wood carving of a child, specifically an Omen child, and this one is of Morgott. And this was made in secret. I'm assuming, probably, that this was not made by the Omen, because why? Like, why? I think you can find a non-Regal version down in the tunnels, but I haven't found that or
Yeah.
confirmed that myself. So, like, I suppose they could have made it themselves, but, like, why would they make little wood carvings of themselves? It seems more like something that would have been made by, like, the parents or something, as far as I'm aware. Because I looked up bairn. It's basically just an English word for child.
Yes.
So it's literally just supposed to be a little wood carving of a child. It's not like a toy or anything. I think it's very clearly intended to be more of like a memento or something. So it would make more sense for that to be carved by like the parents or something. Which means that they weren't entirely forgotten. They still acknowledged their existence in some way, but in a manner that was not open. Like there was still some shame in their existence, so that they acknowledged them privately, but not in front of others.
It's like, yeah, gave birth to you. Happened.
Yeah, that was the thing that occurred. That was a thing that happened. Now, as I mentioned, the Regal Omen Baron is something we can get from the Remembrance of Morgott, who is one of the two big named Omen, and one of the ones we're going to talk about in this video. So, Morgott is a member of the Golden Lineage, and he is one of the children of Marika and Godfrey, so he is one of the big demigods. Now, unfortunately, this did not spare him from the same treatment that the other royal Omen got, so he was thrown down into the shunning tunnels like everyone else. Which I should mention is one of the few places where you can find Omen that have horns. So, like any of the other Omen, he was not gifted with grace by the Erd Tree. He was not loved by the Erd Tree, if you want to apply some sort of personification to it, since it has a will. But I don't think it exactly loves anyone. And he didn't receive love from anyone else. Didn't receive any love from his mother, or his father, or his siblings, so you could argue that there was some degree of affection or caring from Godfrey based on how he's talking about Morgott when we get his intro cutscene. And once again, as I mentioned previously, it's not really clear how much, because it's not like Godfrey took him out of the tunnels or anything, or brought him along with him for the long march. He still left him down there. And Godfrey is a bloodthirsty psychopath, so I question the exact extent of his ability to care about other people.
And that's reasonable.
Yeah, like literally ripped apart his lion friend to do a phase 2 transition.
I mean, would you not?
No, I would not rip open my cat to get a. I would not rip open my cat to start pulling out wrestling moves and screaming at people.
But Misk is a tempting offer. Think, you could pull out your very own wrestling moves. Isn't that tempting?
I feel. Oh, fuck's sake.
You could absolutely kick some ass.
Dude, that soccer ball kick is fucking nasty.
It is.
That soccer ball kick that Godfrey does is hilarious. I fucking love that move. But when the Shattering happened, Morgott helped defend Leyndell from Godric's forces. He probably... I don't know if he just crawled his way out of there, or if they let him out. I'm not sure which I find more likely, because then that also goes into, did Morgott take his Great Rune, or was it given to him by someone?
I would imagine if seeing how, obviously this is all theory territory, unless somewhere there's a more concrete answer, seeing how eventually the Tarnished are reached out to by the Greater Will and Given Grace, I wouldn't be surprised if he was let out and given that chance to defend. Like, hey, this is your home. Go stop the Shattering. We trust you, I think. And that's probably why Morgott views everyone as traitors as well. Because
Probably.
right after the Shattering happened, all this chaos ensued, and then he's there trying to stop it.
I suppose. Though I have to wonder, who let him out exactly? Was the Erd Tree just it used the Force to just yank him out of the tunnels, or did Marika come along?
Well, no, Marika probably would be imprisoned.
Because also Marika spoke to the demigods at some point. Marika delivered like a message to her children at one point, like right after the Shattering happened. So she wasn't imprisoned immediately. There was like a short period
They were
of time.
imprisoned immediately, but like when they still had strength, they could have just, I don't know, used Force magic to send a message out.
Yeah, that
it's like how,
could be possible.
Melina could hear the echoes of Queen Marika in certain locations.
Oh, that's true. That could be a
So
possibility.
it probably is just like, oh yeah, she sent her voice out, going like, my children, stop. Nope. Okay. Random person out of the wider world, stop him.
I suppose.
Okay.
So when Godric is attacking Leyndell because they're trying to kick his ass out, Morgott is freed from the subterranean shunning tunnels, and he decided that he wanted to protect the Erd Tree. Despite the fact that he was never loved by it, he wanted to try and serve some purpose in protecting it, and he ended up caring about it himself unintentionally. This seems like him trying to compensate. Was not gifted with grace upon the moment of his birth, unloved by the Erd Tree, unlike almost everyone else that he's related to, and as such tries to use his actions to maybe win over the Erd Tree, perhaps, trying to get some conditional love. It's someone working in a one-sided relationship.
Yeah.
And in making himself the Erd Tree's protector, he somehow recanted and sealed away his cursed blood, which was then formed into the sword that he fights us with in Leyndell. He still has blood, but I guess...
Separated it.
yeah, I don't know. He filtered it out. He just took all of the omen juice and put it into his sword. It's probably something like the what is it? The four humors? Is that what it is? You've got like blood, and then the other types of bile, right? I'm not an expert on medieval health practices.
Yeah, neither am I. No clue
Yeah,
what you're talking
it's
about.
something. Hold on, we're doing live research.
Wow.
If you're
Yeah, the four humors of the body. It's blood, yellow bile, black bile, and phlegm.
yeah.
And it is of note that the omen juice that comes out of him during his phase 2 in Langdell is, it's black and yellow. Take
Yucky.
from that what you will. And so is most of the magic that the other omen do. So that seems to be their cursed blood and power. And he sealed that away to put within his sword, which he then put within a cane. So he like super sealed away his omen power. And at this point, he became known as Morgott the Fell Omen. And this is presumably for the purpose of being able to go around and do things without people knowing that he is Morgott, the child of Marika and Godfrey. Because people aren't supposed to know that the royal family has omen babies. So instead, it's just, oh, it's this omen guy named Morgott going around killing people.
No, his name sounds close to that. Don't you think? No, it must be a coincidence.
A
Yeah,
complete
happens all the time.
coincidence, don't you know? Morgott is called the something else. Yeah,
It's the fellow. It's
yeah.
who
This
you
dude's the
say.
Fell Omen. Morgott
Right.
is the veiled monarch. I actually
The
don't know
Omen
what they would have
King.
called Morgott prior to the Shattering. I assume they just pretended he didn't exist or something.
Likely.
He's just Morgott, and then
Yeah,
he
he's just
became the Omen
Morgott,
King.
and then he achieves titles after the fact when he gets his Great Rune. But before that happens, he apparently slaughtered countless champions during the Shattering. He even has a monument dedicated to this in Lanedale. Well, I suppose right outside Lanedale, like in between the two walls, you can find one of the sword monuments that says that he was like stacking up mountains of champions. So
Christ.
Godric was bringing along a bunch of really cool people, and there were other people trying to make plays at Lanedale and the Erd Tree, and he just butchered all of them because he's a literal demigod and an omen. So you're kind of like stacking buffs there. Although he was mostly nerfing himself with the omen parts. Still a demigod,
Yeah.
and he was granted grace by the Erd Tree. Something that he did not have upon his birth due to being an omen. So I guess what happened, to some extent, the Erd Tree was like, Morgott, protect me. Seal away
Please.
your gross omen juice, and I'll grant you grace, so you can do spiritual weapon. A
You had
bunch.
to
Just
word that
a
in
bunch
like
of
the
spiritual
most
weapon.
disgusting way possible.
Of course, I must. So he did. He sealed away his blood, and then the Erd Tree was like, cool, here's some grace. Go kill a shitload of people. And so he did. And he became a horror to those with ambitions for the Erd Tree or lordship. So anyone that wants to try and get to the Erd Tree and the Elden Ring and his mom, they're gonna have to go through him, and that's not gonna go good. That's gonna be really bad. He says that he attempted to commune with the Erd Tree and the Elden Ring, but he was denied access. So I assume that he did that for the purpose of trying to fix things, most likely. Probably just to like,
Makes
Mom,
sense.
what the fuck is going on? Tries to get in there to try and maybe, if he can get his hands on the Elden Ring, maybe he can try and fix things a bit. But presumably Marika and Radigan. And I think mostly Marika was the one keeping people out of the Erd Tree. Some people have reminded me in the comments, but I think it was Gideon who theorized that, yeah, I think Marika just kind of wants to make everyone suffer. So she's just not going to let anyone fix anything. She was very upset, and she's going to make it everyone's problem.
What a bitch.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
lock the front door of the god place.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll lock my tree down.
So I guess when he realizes that he's not able to fix things, he's just going to stop things from being changed or trying to change them. Um, so, then he becomes the guardian of the Air Tree. And he presumably takes the anchor ring of the Elden Ring, which becomes his great rune, and this is used as proof that he is a member of the Golden Lineage and that he is the Lord of Leyndell. So him having a great rune, him being a shard bearer, is proof of his heritage. It cannot be denied that Morgott is a member of the Golden Lineage, and it affirms that yes, indeed, he is the Lord of the capital city. Although no one, well, people know Morgott is the Lord of Leyndell, but no one knows who he is. But they know what his job is.
He's there.
They know he's there, and you shouldn't fuck with him. And he actually does go around doing stuff to some extent. There are things done upon his decree. I think the elevator to the Forbidden Lands is sealed off by Morgott. It's literally like, yeah, this is Morgott's seal. You're not getting through here. And you have the Fell twins, who are both Omen guarding the Divine Tower that's in the Forbidden Lands, which is the one you go to reactivate his Great Rune. So, presumably he was the one that put them there as well. These three are the only ones ever referred to as Fell Omens. Like, you have Morgott the Fell Omen, and then you have the Fell Twins. I don't know if that suggests that they're the offspring of Morgott, or if they're just also Omens. And they are also twins, so they just called them that. I don't know. You don't get a ton of information on them. They are the ones that you find out about Rollo from, I think. Or at least you get Rollo's summon from them. And the last thing of note about Morgott, which is something that's made abundantly clear when you go into his boss fight, is that he really hates the other demigods, and he views them all as traitors. But he also tried to become Elden Lord. So what exactly are his standards here? Is he some kind of big hypocrite? Or does he just... is it not trying to become Lord that he has issues with them for? I think more so what it is the Elden Ring is shattered, and instead of trying to solve the problem, everyone working together to ensure that everything doesn't fall apart, everyone just immediately took a Great Rune and then decided to go about trying to do their own thing and take over.
Exactly.
They are all emboldened by the flame of ambition. They all have their own aspirations and ambitions. They all want to be Elden Lord, or they want to be a god, and will completely ruin everything that Marika and the royal family have been doing for ages now. Whereas Morgott, who was never loved or gifted like they were, is the only person here trying to kind of fix things. Kind of trying to bring things back to the way they were. And he's kind of pissed about that. It's like, really? You guys were all gifted and beloved?
The gifted children.
And I'm the one stuck here trying to keep things together? Fuck you guys. You're assholes.
And then you go to his brother.
Yeah, well, an important distinction to make between Morgott and his brother is that Morgott really hates the fact that he is an omen. He views his curse as being a stain on the thrones and the golden lineage, and he finds an immense amount of shame in it. And then you have his brother, Mohg. Mohg.
He embraces what he is.
Yeah. Mohg is Morgott's twin brother. Mohg is... I don't know if based is the word for what Mohg is.
Yeah, fair point.
We will get into Mohg's antics very soon. So, they are not identical twins. They are whatever the other type of twin is, because they look very different.
Eternal.
Yeah. They look extremely different. Morgott is very tall and lanky. He has a tail. All of his horns are mostly dedicated to, one side of his head. But Mohg's is a little bit more symmetrical. He's also got like darker and shinier skin and horns. He looks more like a goat man, whereas Morgott just looks like some kind of amalgam. Uh, and he's also a bit more compact. He's a bit more stout in his stature. Maybe it's just the robe, but Mohg's got a much more square physique going on. Uh, at least to some extent. I think Morgott's actually a bit hunched over, so he ends up looking a little square as well, but Mohg stands pretty straight. So he's just a bit more of a compact lad. Deep beneath the tunnels, like the farthest down you can go in the tunnels, there is a church that either Mohg built. He either built it or he found it. And this is presumably where he came into contact with the Formless Mother, which is an outer god that's also known as the Mother of Truth, and she demands wounds, presumably in exchange for blood sacrifices and stuff. She'll grant you with eldritch knowledge and power, which she did for Mohg. She gave him power. This caused his blood to erupt with fire, and he became besotted with his curse. So, Formless Mother seems to have this thing for cursed blood. It really likes it, and being an omen is pretty cursed. So she was like, hey, you're neat, have some power. And Mohg was like, holy shit, being an omen is awesome. I fucking love being cursed. But it's not enough to just be cursed on your own. If you're a cursed being with godly power, then you should do something with it. And Mohg was presumably very tired of being an exiled, despised mutant living down in some tunnels. So he decided, hey, if my blood is super cool and awesome, I should spread around that blood a little bit and create a dynasty, of which I will be the monarch. But if you want to create a dynasty, especially a divine one in the lands between, you're going to need an Empyrean. So when the shattering occurred, Mohg went along, he stole a great rune, because you gotta have one of those if you're going to be really strong and important.
Of course.
And he kidnapped Miquella, the child of Marika and Radigan, who is an Empyrean, and was also cursed with eternal childhood. Keep this in mind.
Yeah.
So, Mohg goes down to Nokron and sets up his operation in the Mohgwyn Palace, which I'm assuming already existed. I don't know if he came up with the name or not, because people refer to the creation of his dynasty as a revival, which suggests that it already existed. But we don't have, like, any information on a previously existing Mohgwyn dynasty. So I don't know if the choice and wording is just really strange, or if there is actually, like, some sort of ancestor to, I don't know, Marika and Godfrey that we don't know about. Maybe. It seems like for the most part it's just, he wants to start a dynasty.
I imagine it's because since he wants to start a dynasty, he just found this place, built it up, and it became the Mohgwyn dynasty.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you revived that place, yeah.
Yeah, you revived that
Which
place.
He said probably his full name.
Mohgwyn. Well, some people think that Mohgwyn is the name of the god that he wanted to turn Miquella into, which was his plan. He wanted to raise Miquella to full godhood, because just being an Empyrean isn't the same thing as being a god. It's someone that has the potential to become a god. There are a few requirements, as we know. At least requirements for someone to become host to the Elden Ring. They need a shadow-bound beast and a consort. Mohg wanted to become Miquella's consort. Miquella, who is his half-brother and physically like a 5-year-old child. Yeah. So, yeah, very gross.
Not very tasteful.
No, not tasteful at all. Some people think Mohgwyn would be the name of Miquella upon becoming a god. Also because it seems like Miquella wouldn't really be Miquella anymore. Or that's just what the name of the dynasty would be, named after Mohg. Like, dynasties typically are named after the people that created them, but Mohg dynasty doesn't sound right, so I assume Mohgwyn would mean something like the dynasty of Mohg, the Mohgwyn dynasty. Sounds more correct, I guess. I don't know.
This is someone that would do far more research than us.
Someone that would do far more research than us would know. So he goes down here. He hatches this plot, and he creates what's pretty much a cult. At least part of that is the Bloody Fingers, which are most of the invaders that we encounter. You know, most of the NPC invaders, presumably a lot of the player invaders you encounter are Bloody Fingers. And these Bloody Fingers are supposed to gather offerings for a ritual. We also have a priest who worships Mohg, named Esgar, who lives down in the Lanedale catacombs. So, you know, the religion of blood was spreading far and wide. It should be of note that most people do not know Mohg's name. We do not actually find out what it is for a while. Like when Gideon starts telling us about the unlocated demigods, he's like, there's Miquella, there's Melania, and then there's one that's just known as the Lord of Blood. So either most people don't know of Mohg, or they just don't know that Mohg is the Lord of Blood. But he seems to have pretty significant influence. You know, you find Bloody Fingers kind of all over the place, or people connected to him in a lot of places. Vare, the guy you meet as soon as you get out of the tutorial, he's a member of the Bloody Fingers. And you can actually go through his quest line to get to the Mohgwyn Palace early. Relatively speaking, you can get there without the Haligtree medallions.
Kind of fun.
Yeah, very, very considerate. Now, according to the Lord of Blood's exaltation, which is a talisman that you get, I'm pretty sure you get it from Esgar. This is presumably a quote from Mohg that's basically a command to his followers, and it goes as such: "Render up your offerings of blood to your lord, drench my consort's chamber, slake his cocoon's thirst, his awakening shall herald the dawn of our dynasty." So the primary motivation for most of the people that serve Mohg is they want to be part of the new Mohgwyn dynasty. You know, the sanguine nobles are all future nobles. They will become nobles once the Mohgwyn dynasty comes into being.
And they're like, hey, better chance with this psychopath.
Yeah, they're
than,
trying to get ahead of the game, basically.
Like investing in crypto, so to speak.
Yeah, pretty much. Mohg is basically trying to create his own golden lineage. He's trying to start his own divine kingdom based around blood. Specifically his super cool Omen blood.
Disease blood, yeah.
Yeah. Now, there's a mention of a cocoon. Miquella never gave any response to Mohg. No matter what Mohg did, Miquella would like never say anything to him. He refused to accept Mohg as his consort, which is essential. Like, that's how it goes with Marika. For the most part, it doesn't really seem like she has any say in the matter anymore. But you need it for, like, Rani. You need to form an oath with her, which is, it's a consensual thing on both ends. So Miquella refuses to become Mohg's consort, so he's like, shit, what am I supposed to do? Well, he does some stuff. It's not really clear what he does. But he shoves him in this weird cocoon thing. I'm thinking it may be something similar to the egg of reincarnation that Renala has. Because it seems to basically serve the same purpose in that he tries to reform Miquella into this god who may be named Mohgwyn. It uses blood sacrifices. Um, Presumably, there were various amounts of violence of many varieties involved. Listen, I don't think it's I don't think it's overstating to say that Mohg seems like kind of an incestuous pedophile, or at the
That's
very
usually what
least,
it is.
a groomer.
Well, yeah, I think it's more of
I
grooming
think it's more
because
grooming
it's
because
it's more of they wanted them. I mean, I believe it is that they wanted them as a consort because you need to have a consort
yeah,
to become a champion, and then use them and be like a wasn't like a puppet master. Isn't that their
yeah.
big
Basically,
goal?
that's kind of the deal with the consort is that
Yeah.
the
So like
god is pretty
pedo
much just
joke,
a
that of course that can be made, but in reality it's more of just like, all right, meet the requirement and then puppet them.
yeah. So it's not because he's a child. It just happens that he's very weak and easily controlled, theoretically.
And looks like a child.
Oh yeah, him looking like a child is completely coincidental. I swear it has nothing to do with it. Mohg tries
Five
not to get
thousand year
canceled on
old
Twitter.
anime vampire.
No, guys, I swear it's fine. Even though he looks like a 5-year-old boy, he's actually 500 years old.
Wow, Morg loves anime.
He's a big anime fan. Well, what else do
We'd
you think
fit
he was
in
doing down there in the
perfectly with
tunnels?
the
What else do you think he had to do?
Discord server.
Of course, the sewer dwelling mutant is a big anime fan. Aren't we all?
Exactly.
All makes sense now.
Yeah.
We're all
Yeah.
Mohg.
Oh, no, no, that's bad.
That is awful.
Mohg is quite possibly the most objectively terrible person in any FromSoft game. He's quite
Yeah.
awful. He's quite terrible.
Like, upon first hearing this guy, like, he made a whole dynasty of
I mean, I
himself
thought he was
because
neat
he
at
thought it would
first,
be
and then you
cool.
find out that Miquella was a
Awesome.
child, and then you're like, oh.
You're like,
Yeah,
oh,
no,
that is not based.
at all.
Yeah. At first I was like, oh, Mohg's cool with being consort to another dude. That's neat. Then you find out Miquella's a kid, which is weird because when you find Miquella, or part of him, in the Mohgwyn Palace, it's a big, huge god adult arm that looks like it belongs to a corpse, sticking out of the cocoon.
She's a big child.
So, whatever Mohg was doing was working? Probably not if Miquella's just straight up dead. Like if he's literally like fucking around with a corpse inside of a weird cocoon thing, that means he's literally
Miquella's
just
alive,
twisting and
though?
contorting a corpse.
Like, I'm pretty sure it's believed that Miquella is alive.
If he is, he might be. He could be alive, because he got like the hand moving and stuff. Unless it just like very conveniently fell down when we walked in. So I don't know if it's exactly working. It's possible that whatever Mohg was doing was actually kind of undoing Miquella's curse. But the trade-off did not seem to be particularly worth it. Because if he's not dead, he might as well be. I don't know if his whole cocoon birthing a new god thing would really work. We get really good information from Mohg's robes, from the Lord of Blood's robes, which describe him as a luminary, which is, basically like an influential person. He's pretty much a cult leader. It says that it belongs to someone who will be the reigning lord and hierarch of the coming dynasty of Mohgwyn, or perhaps a raving lunatic. And this is also according to Gideon as well. Maybe,
of course, so.
maybe the ritual stuff that Mohg was doing worked, like it was actually having some kind of effect and would have indeed produced a god that he could become consort to, or he was just an actual insane person fucking around with the body of a dead child.
It could always
Probably
be both,
alive.
who knows?
Who may be alive. He's fucking around with a child.
Yeah.
It sounds... I don't know if that sounds worse.
Probably
I feel like
does.
him being dead makes it worse. I'm not sure. Mohg is really bad. He's a really, really terrible person. Like he's objectively monstrous. He's fucking awful.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think many people who are referred to as the Lord of Blood. I don't really hear that name.
I
Like,
mean,
that's a
like
pretty cool guy.
I don't know. Korn is not that bad. I mean, yeah, he's genocidal, but he's not really that biased. Korn's like, yeah, I don't give a shit where the blood flows from so much that it does.
You're not
Give me
terrible,
give
not
me
that
blood
terrible.
because I'm the blood god, and give me skulls for my skull throne. That's all that really matters to Korn. I don't think he's intelligent enough to really have any malice beyond that.
That's it. Mohg didn't have a skull throne. That's
That's what he
really the
needed.
problem.
Every Lord of Blood
Ah,
needs a
poor.
skull throne.
Yeah.
All makes sense now.
Yeah, listen, Korn, like interdimensionally genocidal. Not a pedo though. I don't think.
You had to throw that out there.
Just had to throw it out there. Well, that's pretty much all the information we've got on the Omens and Morgott and Mohg. At the time being, who knows, maybe we'll get more information in the future or something. But in the meantime, that's pretty much all for today's episode. If you enjoyed, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and click that notification bell so you don't miss any of my uploads. I'll be doing Elden Ring lore videos on Tuesdays and Saturdays, sometimes Fridays or Sundays, depending on what's going on with the other stuff I cover on the channel, if there's an opening. Generally, there will be 2 uploads a week for the Elden Ring lore stuff, so definitely be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of that. I will see you guys next time with our episode discussing Godric the Grafted. Until then, I'll see you all around. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.